Yesterday, I had to call a plumber because my toilet backed up. Apparently, besides a bunch of poo all over the floor, I found this to be the cause of the backup. Now, I don't exactly know how it got in there, but since it's here, I might as well review it. This is Garzey's wing.
Back before shows like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Made anime popular in America, the US anime market was essentially a niche fledgling market, catering to a select group of people. Back when Anime Expo only had a couple thousand attendees as opposed to about 100,000 or so. Those were the good old days where if you wanted to watch anime, most of the time you had to record it on an old VHS tape when it was airing in Japan and pass it around.
Not that I condone piracy, but back then that was practically the only way to watch anime.
Those were also the days where, with the exception of Robotech, Voltron, and of course Dragon Ball Z among a few others, anime released legitimately in the US mostly consisted of obscure or bottom-of-the-barrel anime titles that really didn't do well in Japan, and subsequently were easier to export than more successful anime titles.
And a good example of that would be a rather surreal anime from 1996 called Garzey's Wing.
I'm going to have to level with you. Garzey's Wing is freaking hilarious, but for all the wrong reasons. I have never seen a concept like this, so poorly executed and so badly dubbed. The story is about a young man named Chris, whose spirit is whisked away to another world where he is tasked to lead a group of rebels in a fight against an almighty empire.
And coming from Yoshiyuki Tomio, the guy who created the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise, how could you go wrong? Oh, you could freaking go wrong, alright. Let's take a look.
So our story starts with none other than...
Aren't you hot with such heavy clothes? Why do you have to go back to your hometown now?
Excuse me, but what just happened here?
Oh boy, 15 seconds in and already we have some glaring inconsistencies. This is something you would say in the middle of a conversation, not to start the show out with. And why is he in an argument with his girlfriend in the first place? Is she his girlfriend? Did he run over her cat with his bike or something? While riding home, a gigantic glowing swan of some sorts comes by and steals his soul away from him.
And this is where the show really starts to get quacky. No pun intended.
Use the power of the earth and water and power of Amida.
What the? Who are you? A damn ghost?
Why do you think this is the work of a ghost?
No, but I'm starting to regret ever taking that red pill. Word of advice, kids, don't take candy from strangers.
A man is falling down. A young man, isn't he? Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
So after that bizarre sequence, he suddenly finds himself surrounded by various monsters. All seems lost until he is aided by a small group of rebels. So what I could gather here is that Chris was summoned into whatever this place is to become the chosen warrior or holy warrior or something like that.
Actually, this plot does sound familiar.
Bow wow wow yippee yo yippee yay. Bow wow yippee yo yippee yay.
Oh, and by the way, if you haven't guessed already, Chris is completely naked and apparently a she-male.
What are you supposed to be?
You did it!
What the?
I'm Falan Fa!
Apparently, he was chosen to aid a group of slaves escape a castle or some crap like that. This anime has a bad habit of being vague with details. Not only that, but the pacing of the story moves way too fast. It's incredibly difficult to keep up with as it is. In a moderately paced anime, we would probably be somewhere within episode 3 by now, much more than 8 to 10 minutes into the first episode!
And I'm just about as confused as Chris is. Can somebody please tell me what the hell is going on?
So Chris reunites with a group of nameless characters in a swamp infested by giant insects, and Chris gets into a fight with his fairy.
Come on! What are you doing? Act like a holy warrior!
I have nothing to do with it!
You appeared wearing Garzey's wing! Who else would you say you are?
Stop telling me that!
Then tell me, young man, why do you have the wings of light? Why did you take me from Kastanga Hill, where I lived, only to bring me to the common world to help Hassan and all her people there?
Somebody get me a fly swatter.
So as the group decides to take a raft down a raging river in order to escape from the wicked soldiers that pursue them, in which... What the hell?!
Can we hold on for a minute? I need some time for this to sink in.
So I guess what happened is that Chris's body and his spirit somehow got separated from each other, and the link between the two of them is the necklace that both of them wear.
Ow! My body is aching. What happened? I was bruised all over my body because I had to fight naked. Mom told me I have bruises all over my body. Is there any connection to this?
Okay, it's official. This guy is so obviously insane. Check him into a mental hospital!
There is a war going on. Even dinosaurs are here. And they use bows and arrows. My sword is unbelievably dull.
Just like your penis, apparently.
If you die over there, what will happen to me back here? I don't know whether our body and mind are split. I don't know how we got separated, but I think we are still one person. We die together?
Morpheus, please explain it to this guy.
The body cannot live without the mind.
I must somehow make sense of our convoluted situations.
Convoluted? No. This is beyond convoluted. This is seriously
So thanks to the telepathic connection between the two Chris's, the Chris from the human world gives advice to the Chris in the other world, and both are able to pick out a strategy that forces the enemy soldiers off. Chris and the leader of the soldiers face off against each other in a cave, but call the battle off as the force of their battle causes the cave to collapse. As the dust settles, Chris is named the new leader of the rebel forces and is given a new sword.
I know it seemed like an eternity, and I really wish this was the end, but sadly we've got 2 more episodes to go. So let's take a deep breath, and let's continue.
Episode 2 starts with a bit of text crawl that explains more about the fantasy world of which the story takes place, a place called Byston Well. This is all information we should have known during episode 1, and you wait until now to tell us this? Episode 2's pacing is significantly slower than that of the hectic pace of episode 1, and tries its best in the first half of the episode to flesh things out a little. particularly the characters, the story, and the setting.
But once again, this is all information we should have known by the end of the first episode.
The problems with episode 2 are the exact opposite of those of the first episode. The story's pacing now travels at snail's pace, and quite frankly is just as boring as episode 1. Episode 2 starts as the Chris in Byston Well trains to become a stronger warrior. Unfortunately, the king's men have regrouped and are preparing an attack on the rebel forces. It also seems that as the Chris in Byston Well becomes stronger, the Chris in the real world starts gradually getting weaker.
How oddly convenient.
Meanwhile, in Byston Well, our heroes, if you can call them that, attack a marauding war beast. They use some kind of hallucinogenic powder to distract the beast and proceed to kill it.
It's what we call a drug in my world.
If you taste it or smoke it, you get happy and do crazy things.
Yes, it's a bit dangerous.
In other words,
this is crack.
So the guy in gold entices a bunch of monsters together to attack the rebels. And after a long and tedious 8-minute battle with the monsters, some cloaked guy comes in to save the day, says something meaningless, and just disappears, never to be seen again.
which makes this scene entirely pointless, if you ask me.
Chris then teaches the rebels how to make a rifle, which turns out just as pointless because they are never even seen using a gun.
Seriously, why bring the topic of building a rifle up if it's never going to be utilized? We are seriously going nowhere with these plot developments.
The story finally takes a direction as the rebels then utilize a plan to weaken the king's forces by orchestrating an attack on the military supply line, in which the battle continues into episode 3.
I'm just going to speed through the rest of this because I really don't know how much more of this I can take.
After a huge, boring battle in episode 3, the show just ends. There is no real resolution to the plot. Chris's soul never reunites with his body, not to mention one of the most disappointing scenes in the entire show.
1, 2, what? Whoa! Whoa! Stop it! Hey, let me go!
Why is it below?
Damn you! I'll get you! Don't do it! Don't touch me! Get away! Ah! Bastard!
Hey, wait! Huh?
So how exactly do you take an interesting concept and flip it on its head to become one of the most boring and confusing anime titles of all time? Well, despite having a clever premise, this show suffers from such extremely poor execution, and the plot is so poorly explained, it becomes a chore just to figure out what is going on. The writing and directing was handled so poorly to the point it is practically unwatchable.
Seriously, this makes Ed Wood look like James Cameron.
The only thing that manages to give this show any redeeming qualities is its hilariously bad English dub. From what I can understand, the show's US distributor, Central Park Media, hired a group of stage performers who had little to no experience in voice acting. Combine that with a hastily and sloppily thrown together ADR script, the result is what is probably the funniest yet most awkward voice acting I have ever heard in an anime. And another thing, Central Park Media released this travesty in the US in June of 2000, a good 4 years after it was released in Japan. So they should have known this anime was a piece of crap well before they decided to localize it.
And now you know why this company eventually went out of business.
Now, if I recall correctly, Spoony and Sage did a review of this anime together in late 2010 on thatguywiththeglasses.com. What they forgot to mention is that Garzey's Wing is actually an OVA spin-off of a much older anime TV series called Ara Battler Dunebine, as well as having a sequel called Wings of Rain.
If you put it that way, then Garzey's Wing is a rather insulting yet unintentional parody of Ara Battler Dunebine.
Overall, this anime has become notorious as one of the most confusing and boring anime shows of all time, and I would have to agree with Sage and Spoony on what they said about this show. I was hugely disappointed, and I expected a lot better from the guy who gave us the Mobile Suit Gundam series. However, if you're looking for a cheap laugh and have nothing better to do with your time, then by all means take a look at Garzey's Wing. That is, of course, if you dare. So in closing, does this anime really deserve a formal review? No! I'm just gonna slap a 2 out of 10 on this and be done with it.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to chug down an entire bottle of extra-strength Tylenol to get over the headache induced by this show. This is the American Anime Otaku, signing out. But first, I need to send this piece of crap back to the depths from which it came.